All children, except one, grow up. Now, they may not like to grow up, but they do. All except one. And his name is Peter Pan. Of course, not all children believe in Peter Pan. But Wendy, the little girl in our story, believed in Peter Pan, and so did her brothers, Michael and John. Wendy and her little brothers lived with their mother and father, Mr. and Mrs. Darling, in a big city. Their nurse was a prim Newfoundland dog called Nana, whose kennel, of course, was kept in the nursery. Nana took very good care of the children. She saw that they behaved themselves at all times. She gave them their baths. And when she took them to school, she usually carried an umbrella in her mouth in case of rain. There simply was never a happier family until the coming of Peter Pan. One morning, Wendy and her mother found some leaves of a tree on the nursery floor, which certainly were not there when the children went to bed. Mrs. Darling was puzzling over them when Wendy said with a smile,
"I do believe it's that Peter again. How naughty of him to leave such a mess."
Nonsense, thought Mrs. Darling, knowing full well that no one could get into the house without knocking. Wendy didn't think it nonsense. Not at all.
"You see, Mother, Peter comes in by the window at night, and he sits on the foot of my bed and crows like a cock and plays his pipes for me."
Unfortunately, Wendy never woke, so she didn't know how she knew all these things. She just knew. Her mother dismissed it all by saying Wendy had been dreaming, and thus she did think it was a dream until that eventful Friday night. This particular Friday evening, Mr. and Mrs. Darling were going to a party. The children were put to bed and their night lights lit. The window was securely fastened, for it was a cold night, a night peppered with stars. Soon after Mr. and Mrs. Darling left the house, the three children dropped off to sleep, and as soon as they did, their night lights went out. There was now another light in the room. A light 1,000 times brighter than the night lights. It was not really a light. It made this light by flashing about so quickly. But when it came to rest for a second, you saw it was a fairy, no bigger than your hand. It was a girl called Tinker Bell.
Tinker Bell? Tink, where are you?
Peter, you see, had dropped in the window just a moment after Tinker Bell. Tink was in a jug for the moment and liking it very much, as she had never been in a jug before.
Do come out of that jug, Tink, and tell me where I can find my shadow.
In fairy language, Tink told Peter his shadow is in the big box. She meant the chest of drawers. Peter jumps at the drawers, scattering the contents to the floor. He does find the shadow, but when he discovers that it will no longer stick to him, even when he tries to stick it on with soap from the bathroom, he sits on the floor and cries. And the sobs woke Wendy, who sits up in bed.
"Boy, why are you crying?"
What's your name?
"Wendy Moira Angela Darling. What's yours?"
Peter Pan.
"And where do you live?"
Second to the right and straight on till morning.
"Oh, what a funny address."
No, it isn't.
"Is that what they put on your letters?"
Don't get any letters.
"But your mother gets letters."
Don't have a mother.
"Oh, Peter, no wonder you were crying."
I wasn't crying about mothers. I was crying because I can't get my shadow to stick on.
"How awful." "I know. I'll sew it on for you. But it'll hurt a little."
I won't cry.
And so Wendy, who thought she should have perhaps ironed the shadow first, attached Peter's shadow.
Oh, the cleverness of me.
"Oh, you conceited. Of course, I did nothing."
A little.
"A little? Well, if I'm of no use, I can at least get you out of my sight."
And under the cover she went, covering even her face with the blankets.
Oh, Wendy, don't do that. I can't help crowing, Wendy, when I'm pleased with myself. Wendy, one girl is more use than 20 boys.
You really think so, Peter?
Yes, I do.
Well, I think it's perfectly sweet, and I'll get up again. I'll even give you a kiss if you like.
A kiss?
Surely you know what a kiss is.
I shall know when you give it to me.
So as not to hurt his feelings, Wendy gave Peter a thimble, to which he said,
"Shall I give you a kiss?"
"If you please."
And Peter merely dropped an acorn in her hand, to which Wendy said she would wear his kiss on the chain round her neck.
"Peter, how old are you?"
I don't know, but I'm quite young. And I always want to be a little boy and have fun. That's why I ran away a long time ago and lived a long, long time among the fairies.
Oh, Peter, tell me about the fairies. How did they begin?
It was like this, Wendy. When the first baby laughed for the first time, its laugh broke into 1,000 pieces, and they all went skipping about. And that was the beginning of fairies. And so, there ought to be a fairy for every boy and girl.
Well, isn't there?
Oh, no. You see, children know such a lot now they soon don't believe in fairies. And every time a child says he doesn't believe in fairies, there's a fairy somewhere that falls down dead.
Oh.
Say, what happened to Tinker Bell? Tink, where have you gone to?
Peter, you don't mean to tell me that there's really a fairy in this room?
Oh, she was here just now. You don't hear her, do you?
Wait, I think I hear something. It's like bells tinkling.
That's Tink. That's fairy language. Oh, I think I hear her, too. I do believe I shut her up in the drawer. Tink, you shouldn't say such things. Well, I'm very sorry, but how could I know you were in the drawer?
Oh, Peter, if she'd only stand still and let me see her.
They hardly ever stand still. Tink, this lady says she wishes you were her fairy.
What did she say, Peter?
She is quite a common fairy. She's called Tinkerbell because she mends the pots and kettles.
Peter, if you don't live with the fairies...
Well, sometimes I do still.
Well, where do you live mostly now?
With the lost boys, the children who are lost. If they're not found in 7 days, they're sent far away to the Neverland.
Oh, what fun it must be.
Yes, but we are rather lonely.
Oh.
You see, we have no female companionship.
Oh, the stories I could tell to the boys.
Wendy, do come with me and tell us your stories about Cinderella and...
Oh, dear, I can't, Peter. Think of Mummy. Think of my brothers, Michael and John. And besides, I can't fly.
I'll teach you.
Oh, how lovely to fly.
I'll teach you to jump on the wind's back and away we'll go. And Wendy, you could tuck us in at night and darn our clothes and make pockets for us. None of us have pockets.
Peter, would you teach John and Michael to fly too?
If you like.
Oh, John! Michael, wake up! Peter Pan has come, and he'll teach us to fly.
Peter Pan, I'm awake.
I'm awake too. Say, Peter, can you really fly?
Instead of troubling himself to answer Michael, Peter flew around the room, taking the mantelpiece on the way.
How do you do it, Peter? You just think lovely, wonderful thoughts, and they lift you up in the air.
Well, couldn't you do it very slowly once? I've got it now, Michael.
I think I have, too.
Of course, not one of them could fly an inch. No one can unless fairy dust has been blown on him.
What you need is fairy dust. There! Try it. Just wriggle your shoulders this way and let go.
And up and down they went, round and round.
Look at me!
Oh, this is heavenly. Look at me. Why shouldn't we all go out?
Let's go right now. I want to see how long it takes me to go 1 billion miles. There it is, Neverland.
Where, Peter? Where?
There. See? There's the lagoon. Look, Michael, there's your cave.
Oh, I see the smoke of the Redskin camp.
There's a pirate asleep in the pampas just beneath us.
Who is he, Peter? Are there many pirates?
His name is Hook, and he's the captain of all the pirates, and there are many.
Hook? Oh, he's the worst of them all. He was Blackbeard's bosun.
That's him. There's one thing that every boy who serves under me has to promise, and so must you. It's this. If we meet Hook in open fight, you must leave him to me.
I promise.
I promise.
And where are the boys at this moment? All the lost boys. Hoping that Peter would come back soon, they were waiting for him in their home under the ground. And a very delightful residence it is. Look closely. There. You don't see it? True, there's no entrance. But look a bit more closely, and maybe you'll see 7 large trees. And in each hollow trunk, there is a hole as large as a boy. They are the 7 entrances to the home under the ground for which Hook has been searching in vain these many moons. Will he find it?
Most of all, I want Peter Pan. 'Twas he cut off my arm. I've waited long to shake his hand with his hook. Oh, I'll tear him.
This is Captain Hook, talking with his faithful bosun, Smee.
Peter cut off my arm and flung it to a crocodile that happened to be passing by. And that crocodile liked my arm so much, Smee, that it has followed me ever since, from sea to sea and from land to land, licking its lips for the rest of me. That crocodile would have had me before this, but by a lucky chance it swallowed a clock, which goes tick-tick inside it. So before it can reach me, I hear the tick, yeah, and I can make my escape.
No sooner had Captain Hook said this than he jumped up from the mushroom on which he has been sitting.
Ew, this seat is hot. Odds, bobs, hammer and tongs, I'm burning!
Examining the mushroom, Hook discovers it has no root. He tries to pull it up, and he sees it is not really growing out of the ground. Stranger still, smoke begins to come out of the ground.
A chimney! Well, that's what it is.
So Hook had discovered the chimney of the home underground. It was the custom of the boys to stop it with a mushroom when enemies were in the neighborhood. Not only did smoke come out of it, but there came also the voices of children. Imagine the boys, feeling safe in their hiding place, gaily chattering away. Captain Hook stood thinking for a long time. Then, with an evil smile curling his lips and a terrible plan forming in his mind, he ordered his men back to the ship.